So this guy right here is one way that you can measure your millimeters. This is standard in inches. And then on the other side we got millimeters, and you can flop it around with the screws right there, so it makes it a little easier to see. But you would get this thing centered. We'll call that centered for our video purposes. Hey YouTube, it's Sean, Griffin RC Plane. So how about a couple little pointers for when you're installing a receiver into an airplane and you're having to set it up from scratch? I'll just give you a couple little pointers, might help you out a little bit. So this is my Avios King Twin. It's a beautiful airplane. I haven't flown it much. That's a whole nother story. So you get an airplane and it comes with servos and it comes with a speed control, everything but the receiver. The receiver is the brain. So you need to create a new model in your transmitter and have all the control surfaces working the direction that they're supposed to work and the amount of travel they're supposed to have. So you're going to look at your manual and a couple of little knickknacks here, and I'll show you step 1 real quick, and maybe we'll go to step 5 in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So you got a new RC airplane that you need to install a receiver into. They call it a PNP or a PNF. That's a plug and play or a plug and fly. A lot of the airplanes come with the servos and the motors and the speed controls, everything but the receiver. So you need to create a new model in your transmitter. You need to install the receiver. You need to get all your control surfaces working the direction that they're supposed to work. And you need to get all your travel rates set. In the manual, it'll tell you the maximum and the minimum of the control surface travel. So that would be your high rate and your low rate. If you're using a 3-position switch, you would have a low, medium, and high rate. For example, if you're looking at the elevator right here, that would be the high rate, and then that'd be my medium rate and the low rate. So the very first thing you need to do is install your receiver as close to the very center of the airplane and as close as you can get it to the center of gravity line. The receiver is the brain, and nowadays we have gyros in the receiver. The gyros can counteract the control surfaces to make adjustments for gust of wind. We also have awesome technology such as Safe Select that will keep the plane level or give it limited bank angles so you don't roll it upside down on accident, but it might roll it 45, 50 degrees, etc. But the receiver is the brain. So the receiver needs to be in the center of the plane, as close as you can get it to the center of gravity line. That way it can do its job to the best ability that it can. If you have the receiver way away from the center of gravity or way off to the, nowhere near the center of the airplane, then the gyro wouldn't be as accurate because the brain is not centered. In this particular plane, the Avios King Twin, I didn't have much room or much choices to mount the receiver in the center and on the center of gravity line. But I did find a way to do that, mounting it upside down. Let me show you. It is right there. You see the bunch of wires facing us? Those are the servo wires that are plugged into the receiver. I have a Spektrum receiver in there because I'm a Spektrum fanboy and I like Safe Select. But the receiver is very similar to this one in shape, and it's mounted right here upside down. So picture this thing right about there, down in there. That is the center of gravity line and the center of the airplane. This plane is huge, so getting it in your plane stand and so on, it's quite the chore. This thing has a 1700 millimeter wingspan, which translate to about 68.5 inches. So that's quite quite a big spread right there. Quite a big spread on the old Avios King Twin 1700. So the center of gravity in this plane is right about this line. How do you find that out, Sean? How do you find it out? Let me show you real quickie. Here's the quick setup guide that comes with the plane. Of course, you have to go to the website and download the bigger one. But on the quick setup sheet, down here in the bottom left, it says the center of gravity is 80 to 90 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing root. Well, the leading edge will be the front edge of the wing, but the root will be closest to the fuselage. So right here, 80 to 90 millimeters back. You can get these things on Amazon for probably $5, and I'll just set it at 85. And then if you don't poke a hole in your plane, gently get you a ballpark figure. So the 80 to 90 is right about here. This white strip right here is actually the 90 mark. So coming forward, 85 is just past this white piece of plastic that's hiding all the wires in it. So there is your center of gravity. So that's where you want your receiver mounted. Plus, that's where you want your plane to balance. So when you have your battery in there and so on, that's where you need to try to get to balance, somewhere in that area. Everybody's flying habits are a little bit different. I want mine to be nose heavy, so if something happens, at least it's going to point down and I have a chance on trying to save it. There's other people that are on YouTube here that like it the opposite way. You know, they like to have a tail heavy plane. So just people's preference, but I would get it as close to the recommended settings in the instruction manual first. Now, we got our receiver mounted, and we got it mounted good. I'm talking double-sided tape that this receiver is fixed to the airplane to where you could almost hold on the receiver and pick the whole plane up. You don't want the receiver sitting on a pillow of Velcro, because if the receiver can move around without being attached to the plane, then the gyro is not going to do any good. The receiver and the airplane need to be one. I'm talking one. Not bobbing around on Velcro. One. Hot glued to it. Now, you need to get all your control surfaces set up. You need to have all your trims centered in your transmitter. You need to have all your servo throws neutraled. Everything needs to be neutraled in the transmitter. And then you need to look at your servos on your control surfaces and make sure that they're centered as well. Alright, so we got our trims. The trims are centered in your transmitter. Your sticks are centered. All that stuff. So now you would look at your servos and make sure that the servo arm is 90 degrees to the servo, and that your servo horn on the control surface is also, you kind of want 90, 90, 90. That's what you're going for, unless otherwise, such as these flaps. Different story right there. So we got 90 degrees servo arm, 90 degree push rod, and 90 degree control rod horn to the control surface. And our trims are centered in the transmitter. So to adjust your travel and your elevator, you would look at the manual, and on the quick setup guide right here it says elevator 8 to 12. So that's saying that 8 millimeters is your low rate and 12 millimeters is your high rate. So the maximum that they recommend is moving the control surface up to 12 and no less than 8. So whatever thing you can come up with to measure millimeters, you would be in your highest rate. You're set at 100% on your dual rates. The dual rates is right there, rates and expo, but we're still in the servo setup screen. So in your high rate, we're going to see how much travel does our elevator have. If it goes way over the 12 millimeters, then you would adjust the servo travel limit. So right there's our elevator, and maybe we need to take it down to 80, or maybe we need to take it down to 90. And then once you get your control surface at its maximum allowable travel by the manual, then that's where your servo setup travel is. From there you go to dual rates, and you would set up your low, medium, and high. But the travel limit is where you're going to set your max at. So you would do that on all your control surfaces. This model's a little more to it than others because there's 2 push rods for the elevator halves. So the servo is going to move 2 different rods. So you need to make sure that the rods are, you know, the same length, and when you're moving the elevator stick, that both elevator halves are moving the same distance.
Light pack 115 milliamp hours.
You know, we don't want one moving more than the other. And then the rudder and the steering wheel, or the steering wheel up front, they're on 2 separate servos, but they're connected through a Y harness. So getting your steering adjusted with your minimum and maximum rudder movement also. So there's quite a bit of fiddling getting your model completely set up. And then you have your flaps, and the flaps have several control rods on them. All right, guys, well, hey, hopefully that helps somebody out. Just a pointer here and there. Sometimes I would watch many videos all on the same subject, just to pick up a little bit from this video and a little bit from that video and a little bit from this guy and a little bit from that guy, until it all started coming together for me. So maybe that's what I'm doing. That's my whole point on doing this stuff, is just to give back and to help other people get into the hobby. The more the merrier. This is a lot of fun, guys. It's a lot of fun. Hey, that's all I got for this one. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff is the best way to support me, and goes a long ways in the YouTube algorithm. At 20,000, we'll give away 3 jets. We can do it sooner than later. We could do it as soon as you'd get it in time for Christmas this year. We just need to get enough subscriptions. Pretty cool how these both props turn into one another. I think that's really neat. It doesn't take much to get it moving. I've only flown this thing about 4 times now. You can go back and see those videos. I need a little bit more practice with this guy. All right, guys. Hey, adios. I think that's really neat. It doesn't take much to get it moving.